Okay, so last class you had the option to do one of two loyalty entries for loyalty entry number 3. You had options. You could have done this one, or you might have done the one where Friar Lawrence is answering back to him. So I'm going to go over both of those. Let me make it larger so you can see. So the first one, if you did 2.3 lines, the ones where Romeo's talking, he says, "Then plainly know my heart's dear love is set on the fair daughter of rich Capulet, and mine on hers, so hers is set on mine, and all combined, save what thou must combine by holy marriage. When and where and how we met, we wooed and made exchange of vow. I'll tell thee as we pass, but this I pray, that thou consent to marry us today." So what he's saying there is like, let me be frank, let's cut to the chase. My choice has been made. Who is it? It's Juliet Capulet. And as mine on hers, so hers is set on mine. I like her, she has my heart, I have her heart, I like her, she likes me. And all combined, this one was what we reviewed last class too, and it was giving people some trouble. All combined, save what thou must combine by holy marriage. This is all one sentence. The as mine on hers, so hers is set on mine, and all combined, save what thou must combine by holy marriage. My heart is set on her heart is set on my heart, and we're all combined. Like everything is combined, we're all meshed together, except what we need you to combine by legal and holy marriage. And so sometimes when you're reading Shakespeare, you might have to like picture it in your head, and all combined, as mine on hers is set on mine, all is combined. You see how you're literally having to envision this in your head? It's like a puzzle, it's like a riddle that you have to solve. And so sometimes you literally have to like draw it in your mind and be like, okay. And so that's how I learned how to do Shakespeare. I remember I didn't have a very good high school experience, so I don't think read Shakespeare in high school, because I went to 4 different high schools, and then I ended up just dropping out and taking a test instead and going straight to college when I was 17, because it was just like too silly. But so when I took my first Shakespeare class in college, I was like, huh? What? And it wasn't until I realized that I can't read Shakespeare like other books that I realized that it's totally doable. It's language that we know. We just have to slow down and really imagine those visuals, and then figure out sometimes those visuals are just the stepping point. Sometimes the literal is not what he means, but there's a figurative, right? It says, "Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines," right? Literally, we're talking about the sun, but metaphorically, we're talking about a woman who gets too maybe angry or too mistempered. So everything's good. We're all set. We're like already one, except for what you need to do, which is bring us together through marriage. I'll give you all the deets later about how we met and all the cute little things that we did. Let's walk and talk. But answer me now. Marry us, please. So he's just hoping that, Friar Lawrence will do that. So obviously this is showing a loyalty to Juliet when he decides to ask Friar Lawrence to marry them in church. Remember, your red needs to have not only who is loyal to whom, but also what decision is made. So what's decided here? Well, he's asking Friar Lawrence to marry them. That's a big decision, right? Marriage. And then remember your orange, and why I talk so much about your orange is because it's not just about the loyalty entry. Your orange is how you introduce a quote, period. Yes. Yeah, so that would be the end of the sentence above it, since see how there's no punctuation? So because there's no punctuation here, the thought continues here. So everything's combined except for what you must combine through marriage. The best way to translate it is to break it up as it's broken up here, right? So if, as you see what we did, right, it says, "and all combined, say what thou must combine." So first you just talk about this, and all combined. How would I put "and all combined"? And everything is good, save what thou, except for what you must combine, okay, except for what you need to put together. So you could just stay kind of like you would translate something from French to English, like word for word. And then when you do it word for word, you'll see it works out because then at the end you have a complete sentence. But yeah, Shakespeare, it's not, you don't read it like this, line for line. You read it basically punctuation to punctuation. So notice that there's no punctuation here. That's because the thought goes into the next line. And that's where the thought ends because you have punctuation. So whenever there's no punctuation, like you were saying in this line or in this line or in this line, the thought continues on to the next line, but you can still, you're going to look at it almost like you're translating from a different language, but this I pray, but this is what I'm wondering, that thou consent to marry us today. Will you marry us, please, today? So, I mean, you can break it up. You just have to think maybe a little bit harder. But the key to reading Shakespeare is to look at the punctuation. And if there's no punctuation at the end of a line, you should keep on reading, knowing that the thought is extending, is continuing into the next line. So then the orange would be, we see this when after Romeo has stayed up all night talking to Juliet, he wants to take the relationship further. And then the purple, I don't want you guys to get too hung up on the purple. Really, it's just like talking about the quote, proving that you understand the characters and like the conflict or whatever's happening in that moment. So I just put, this illustrates that Romeo wants to be with Juliet despite the risk he's taking due to the family's mutual hatred of each other. This leads to Friar Lawrence saying yes, he will marry them in hopes of uniting the town. And you know, like I said, if you're stuck on purple, just talk about the quote specifically and what it shows about the characters and the conflict. And remember, I'm teaching you just how to write a paragraph. Just the fact that we're calling it a loyalty journal and we're breaking it up like this, you're still learning how to write a paragraph, how to introduce a quote, how to paraphrase a quote, and how to analyze a quote. It just looks a little different than a paragraph. Okay, so that's the one option that you could have done. The other option that you could have done would be the one that is right after the utterance of Romeo, where Friar Lawrence is like, Holy St. Francis, what a change is here. Is Rosaline that thou didst love, whom thou didst love so dear, so soon forsaken then? Young men's love then lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes. Jesu Maria, what a deal of brine hath washed thy sallow cheeks for Rosaline. How much salt water thrown away in waste to season love, but of it doth not taste. So I wanted to bring up how like one word that might have stopped you in your tracks is brine, because he does keep referring to it for the rest of the lines. If you don't know what brine means, there is this amazing thing on this side of the book. And my Zoomers, it's kind of hard to see, but my roomers, you know, you guys should have your books in front of you too. But see on this side how on the left side, there's a translation key. So on the side that doesn't have the original text, the author, the editors have decided, you know, people might have trouble with these words. So we're going to tell them what they mean. So if you went to the actual page that this quote is, and it says, Jesu Maria, what a deal of brine hath washed thy sallow cheeks for Rosaline, you'll see that, so lines are the lines right here, right? The little numbers. So you look for whatever line you're confused about. And then you look here. And as you can see, the first one, yes. Oh, you're amazing. Thank you for saying that. And thank you for saving. Good. And that really does help, right? Because then you're like, oh, that's easy, right? And so then it really stops the whole like stressful. Thank you for telling me that I said that, because sometimes I don't know if I've like repeated myself. Yes. That was the third purple. If you got the updated packet has it all nice. This has so the really sister is no third purple, instead it's the black is no purple. So this you can use this for the rest of your interview. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You guys, does anyone else want the updated packet? Yes. It has like it doesn't have the mistake with the black and purple if you want to see it. Yeah, no problem. goes, it has more space. So the loyalty entries, you don't have to squeeze them all into one page. It gives you more room. So that's how I should have made it. It was just that I was being stingy because they charged me per page to make copies. So I was like, let's put it all in one page. But I realized that that's stupid. Um, so yeah, so the purples, Dio, are really just talk about why this person's loyal, talk about the loyalty, talk about the conflict, really just generally talk about the quote and what it shows about the characters and the conflict they're facing. Really, purple is your analysis. So just analyze. So oh. Kevin, are you just coming in? Oh my God, what? What? Oh. Okay, so that was the first option we went over was what Romeo said, and then the second option for loyalty entry number 3 is what Friar Lawrence said back, and we talked about just how you could look up what brine means, and then you're like, oh, it's salt water. Oh, what would salt water be on our face? Oh, tears. Okay, it makes sense now, and that's also why, like what Dio was saying, it's so important to not stop reading when there's no punctuation, knowing that the thought continues on to the next line. So even though you're translating it as it's broken up, the thought continues. So just like if you were translating in a different language, you just kind of like translate word for word and break up the thought. So he's like, holy moly, what a change of heart you've had. This chick you were obsessed with earlier, is she so quickly abandoned? Teenagers, they love with not their hearts, but with their lusty hormonal eyes. Jesus, you wasted so much salt water, so many tears. They flowed over your sad face, all for Rosaline. You cried so much over a girl, and now you've changed your mind. That rhymes. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it, guys. No, this is the second option for number 3, because you had 2 options for number 3. So you might have done the then plainly no, and then some people might have done the Holy St. Francis. And so this was your second option, and just notice how what we did in the orange is just mentioning what just happened right before this utterance. Well, we see this when, after Romeo has fallen for Juliet, he asks the local priest to marry them and gets an answer that is somewhat unexpected and revealing, like, of his personality. So just notice that I'm kind of giving a little bit of detail so that then the person goes in like knowing what to expect, but not having the quote given away. And then for my analysis, I just put, this shows Friar Lawrence is concerned about Romeo's changing heart and wants him to consider slowing down a bit. Ultimately, Friar Lawrence decides to marry Romeo and Juliet to unite the town. He's going to be pissed AF. And so Friar Lawrence, he's really showing loyalty to Romeo, like by cautioning him not to jump into things. But then later, when he finally decides, okay, I will marry you, then he's showing loyalty to the town, because he's saying, you know what, I don't really believe you guys are in love, but I'm going to marry you because maybe it will bring happiness to the town, and maybe it will bring peace to the town, which is something they haven't seen in a long time. Father Lawrence. I'll put it up. So, sorry, Friar Lawrence. Yeah, so that can be confusing because, like in the Catholic Church, they call, priests fathers. And so, yeah. So Friar Lawrence is his name, Lawrence. I always spell that wrong. So, and Friar Lawrence, he's kind of like we were saying earlier, like you could put either. I think I misspoke and said Father Lawrence, but it's actually Friar Lawrence, but it's okay. Whatever you write. As long as Lawrence is there, we'll know who you mean. And so Friar Lawrence ultimately says, yes, I will marry you guys in order to unite the town. And that's what we are going to be watching right now. While I have this recording though, I will tell you the fourth entry that your homework is going to be. Have that all ready to go. Your fourth entry will be from 2.4, lines 183 to 186, and lines 190 to 192. I'll put that in the chat. Today, I'm going to lecture on those lines. We're gonna watch a little bit, and then I'm going to read these lines and the next scene together with you guys. And then yeah, this will be your homework. So you won't know like what this is exactly yet, but this is what your homework is. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines. And remember, it's a combination of lines. I'm like, it's like we're doing the thing. Remember how I taught you earlier, which don't forget this, we haven't used it in a minute, right? The ellipses, right? The dot, dot, dot with the brackets. So it's like I'm gluing two quotes together. They're both on the same page. They're both really close to each other, but they're glued together. And that's page 101 for those of you who don't yet know how to read the action scenes. But I really recommend that you get comfy being able to flip through and find, Act 2, Scene 3, okay, Act 2, Scene 4, Act 2, Scene 5, that you're able to do that and that you're able to find the line numbers. Remember, the line numbers are on the side and they're by 5. You're going to have to read Shakespeare all 4 years of high school, so you might as well learn to read it now. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording.